Okay, I'm Janine Pipe. I'm a writer, editor, director, and producer, but most importantly, a lifelong horror movie fan. This is the first episode of my rebooted Movie Chat YouTube channel, where I will be talking to fellow film fans about a specific movie that we all love. These panels are not to formally review or to critique, but to celebrate our chosen subject, and they will contain many spoilers, so you have been warned. Okay, that's enough about me. I'm delighted to have three amazing guests joining me in this baptism of fire. So, first of all, we have Alex Zane, a movie journalist and TV presenter. Also, we have Ben Fenlon, the co-host of For the Love of Horror and a certified film nerd. And I'll agree with that. And finally, Neil McRobert, host of the Talking Scared podcast and has bylines with Esquire magazine and The Guardian. So first of all, how are you all on this fine evening?
Yeah,
Liberate me.
I'm very well.
Awesome. Waiting for the first person to dive into Latin, Alex. So,
yeah, happy to take that crown. No, I made a mistake. It wasn't liberate me. It was liberate tutor me. Save yourselves.
Oh, it still gives me the chills, that.
Yeah. Every time.
Okay, so on that note, tonight's podcast is all about the 1997 film Event Horizon. So, Event Horizon centers on a rescue ship called the Lewis and Clark. Its team are tasked with traveling to the far reaches of the solar system to answer a distress signal from the titular Event Horizon, a huge spacecraft which vanished without trace 7 years before. The hope is to find and rescue any survivors. Joining Captain Miller's crew is Dr. Weir, the architect of the Event Horizon. Before long, Weir reveals that they are heading to no ordinary craft. He built it to travel faster than the speed of light by opening a rift in the space-time continuum, a man-made black hole. However, we all know what happens when you fuck with space and time, and soon we discover that the ship has literally been to hell and back. Very little remains of the Horizon's crew, but we learn via a snippet of recording that there has been some sort of blood orgy massacre. The crew of the Lewis and Clark fall foul of the same malignant presence that preys on their worst fears and guilt for past sins, wiping out most of them in horrific ways. There is a good reason why this now cult classic, directed by Anderson when he was only 31, which is amazing, is often referred to as Hellraiser in space. So, when was the first time that you saw Event Horizon, if you can remember, and what was your first reactions to it? So if we start with Alex first, can you remember when you first saw it?
I can. It's a very specific memory. I was actually in Bangkok, of all places, and what do you do when you're in that melting pot, that hub of culture and history? Well, if you're my friends, you go and explore the temples, and if you're me, you go and sit in a dark theater and watch Event Horizon. And it scared the shit out of me. I was watching it on my own. Eyeless Claire scared me. I was traumatized by the baby bear, mama bear airlock scene, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. Mm-hmm. And now sort of where are we? Like over 20 years later, I'm obsessed with this romantic notion of this infamous lost footage. And I love the fact that has bubbled away almost ever since its release and has constantly kept this movie in the public's, well, I say the public's, in our consciousness. And we're like super excited every time someone goes, they found something, and they haven't, and they never will. But that's what keeps us going.
Definitely. Awesome. Ben, when did you first see it?
It was either on Sky Box Office or on video back on its initial release. Well, initial home release. Again, similar to Alex, it was not a life-changing experience, but yeah, it was sort of like, it's The Shining in space, it's Hellraiser in space, it's everything I like about horror with a sci-fi twist. I'm a massive fan of claustrophobic space horror, and it just takes, it's like Alien, but funky and 90s. And the lost footage thing, I'm going to bring it up now because I don't want to sit on this the whole way through. I tested Sean Pertwee last year. And the first thing I did when we were drunk was, what's the deal with Event Horizon? and he told me loads of stuff that I can't tell you.
Get out.
Okay, I've got, this is so funny, Ben, because I have a habit. I drink in the same bar as Sean Pertwee quite often, and it's beyond a joke. Every time I see him, I corner him and go, so let's talk about Event Horizon. And bless him, he will always do it. He loves talking about that movie. And I've got one bit of information, a bit of trivia, because I did it 2 weeks ago before we're recording this. And I've got one bit of trivia that I think you may have an exclusive, Janine, because I don't think anyone else knows. And it's not the biggest bit of trivia, but it is new fucking Event Horizon trivia.
Oh, we'll save that. We'll tease that out and keep people listening. Neil, when did you first see it?
Well, before we go any further, I feel a bit affronted that I'm clearly the only person here who's not mates with Sean Pertwee. So,
yeah, sorry, he's our bestie.
Wasn't briefed on that. So, I think to kind of pull back the curtain on my neuroses, I saw this when I was about 14 on DVD when it came out. So it would have been 98, not even DVD, video. Would have been. I had very few friends. I was a nerd, and I used to spend a lot of time watching horror films with my grandma, who was approaching 80 at the time, and we watched Event Horizon. And I didn't really. I loved horror, but I didn't know anything about horror, so I didn't get all of the stuff that we'll talk about. I didn't get like the Clive Barker references. I didn't get the cosmic stuff. I didn't get any of that. I'd seen Alien. And I thought, that's a cool monster movie. And then I saw Event Horizon, and it just felt so much nastier than Alien. It felt so much scarier. And I don't think I fully understood why it was scaring me so much. I was just looking at gnarly images, but it's one of those films that plays on your mind. And again, the airlock scene with Justin's spacewalk is just one of the most horrific things I'd seen up at that point. Yeah, so it kind of elevated my horror experience from things like Scream and stuff like that into, horror can hurt you. And yeah, love it.
Nice, awesome. I think I probably saw it early 2000s, something like that. It definitely was before Dog Soldiers, because I remember recognizing Sean in Dog Soldiers from having seen him in Event Horizon. So maybe about 99, 2000, something like that. And the biggest thing that I can remember was comparing it to Alien, but it being even scarier, because it was, rather than fighting against an actual alien, don't know what that presence was, that whole like malevolent presence which wasn't actually there. You weren't sure what you were fighting against. I remember that being a big thing, with it being, I know Paul Anderson calls it a ghost story or a haunted house in space, and that is kind of very much how it always felt to me. Had that kind of feeling, and I'm massively claustrophobic. And again, the airlock scene, but also the bit when Weir is climbing in to check the control things, and he's like in that kind of it looks like when you go through the air ducts, and he's crawling through it, and they're using the green light to make it, obviously like more claustrophobic. That was just horrific. So awesome. Okay. We'll talk about the film in general, and we've probably all got little bits and pieces that we want to throw in, but I wanted just to wonder if anybody had something that was very specific about why they liked it, if there's a specific plot point that made it stand out over other kind of like space horror films, or whether there's a particular character that you really sort of like felt was someone that you could relate to, or whether there was anything else, whether it was the whole mythos behind it and the mystery behind it that is something that draws you back to it. So Alex, is there anything specific about the film that brings you back to it time and time again?
I mean, not to turn this into the Sean Pertwee loving, but from day one,
no, please do.
Smitty is just my favorite character. But I mean, if you just look at the cast as a whole, I mean, you've got Sean Pertwee there, you've got Jason Isaacs, and I mean, I think probably like my two favorite bits of casting, and this comes from like Paul Anderson going, who do I want to cast as Dr. Weir? And so he consciously goes, I'm going to cast the guy who saves the kids from dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, America's hero, Dr. Alan Grant. I'm going to cast him, and then I'm going to make him the most fucking devilishly insane monster in the world. I love that. And then I love his other bit of casting where he goes, I cast Jolie Richardson as Stark because she was this English Rose. She just done 101 Dalmatians. She's from this English acting dynasty. I'm going to get her and I'm going to cover her in 1,000 gallons of blood. And I think that's brilliant. I think the cast of this, because you just feel for them, you genuinely, you are concerned about these castmates. And I know we're going to draw loads of comparisons with Alien and The Shining. And, I think it's worth saying to any naysayers that Paul Anderson has been very honest about those influences. He says, This is a celebration of those moments. This isn't a cynical attempt to steal from those movies. This is celebrating those movies. And I think that's great.
Definitely. Ben, what do you think?
Again, it is the cast for me, but I'm not going to follow in that because that was so well said. So I'll probably say I like the audacity of the fact that it ended with Funky Fit by the Prodigy.
Yes.
To the London. And open confused and then sitting down to watch a really gnarly, gory sci-fi. It's just a little twist ended. It's Funky Fit and just I'm confused. I'm not saying you get away with that these days.
It's so beautifully 90s. I agree totally, Ben. It's it's one of that, and weirdly, the Pixies "Where Is My Mind" at the end of Fight Club. But that and the end of that sort of cut to the credits and the music choice and that needle drop is just incredible.
It's up there with them. The most expensive place in the song. I don't remember dancing through the pockets and sounding like he's going to bed, his kids singing. It's really deep inside me still. We remote. Audacity.
Oh, that's awesome. And I like that you brought the music into it as well. That's cool. Neil, what was it for you?
First of all, I love the fact that it's made by the same person who made Mortal Kombat and Resident Evil and all that, because it's just insane that he sort of snuck out this absolute cult gem in between a somewhat malign career.
He done
so I love that, but
he done Soldier as well. He Event Horizon and Soldier. They was his two best films.
Not a massive fan of Soldier. It's probably the one Kurt Russell film I don't like, but maybe. I like the fact that's the same part of the Blade Runner universe. I like that thing about that. But for me, Event Horizon, it's the sort of cosmic scale of it, right? We'll get into the whole thing about the hell dimensions. I don't want to go in too much now, but I just love that idea. I love the idea that they managed to get across, right, this idea that space is infinitely creepy because it's infinitely possible. What the fuck is out? What is out there? What we're going to encounter? And I love the fact, unless I've misinterpreted this, that at the end, Miller. We're doing full spoilers, right?
Yes, yeah.
I love that Miller doesn't. He goes to hell. It's the cruelest, bleakest end. He doesn't just die. He literally goes to what we know is going to be an infinite, endless torment. I mean, that's quite a thing to leave you with, and then go straight into the outro track.
Yeah,
it's what's fascinating about that sort of the horrors beyond this dimension is I don't know. Like Philip Eisner, the writer, played a lot of Warhammer 40k. I think the quote is, "I played the shit out of 40k." So Event Horizon, either directly or indirectly, is influenced by 40k, and anyone who's into 40k knows about the warp, this sort of this area of chaos, this dimension of pure chaos that they use to travel around space. And there's a sort of beautiful fan theory that this is part of the 40k canon, and actually this is mankind's first encounter with warp space.
I had a beautiful moment where I watched this quite recently with my brother-in-law, who's not particularly sort of cinematically versed. He just watched it as a bit of fun, but he's a massive Warhammer nerd, and he got really into the books, and he watched it, and it was really fun watching him come to that realization independently of the fan theory. No, he was telling me, and I was like, yeah, I know, Tom. Yeah, I know. I know. But it was just really nice watching it dawn in his eyes. Yeah.
And I think that's one of the really clever things about it as well. And I mean, Paul Anderson's never really sort of openly said, yes, I definitely did this or I definitely did that. But people that are big fans of Hellraiser go in and they see Hellraiser. People that are big fans of Warhammer go in and they see that, you know. So it's like there are all the, it's like an onion, you know, there's different layers, different interpretations. It doesn't mean that anybody's right or wrong because they're all theories, but you can draw so much from it. One of the big things that I noticed on the latest rewatch was all of the religious iconography that goes with it as well. And I hadn't really ever, you know, as on the first couple of watches, which were just watching it as just a fan that liked the film, I never really picked up on any of that. But the whole that the entire spaceship is modelled after the cathedral in Notre Dame and things like that. And when you go back and you can watch it, there's the sort of the medical room's got these huge great big pillars in it and arches and all this kind of stuff. It's really quite obvious that where all of that was drawn from in the whole production. And I think that's one of the things that we need to remember with it as well, is obviously it was a studio film. So it was he had these massive stages in Pinewood to be able to make all of this stuff, and he actually made so much of it. You know, yes, there is visual effects that are added in and stuff like that, but so much of this is practical. And you know, I watched the behind the scenes things, and you know, he said that it was a horrific set in many ways for the crew, because rather than have everything all completely flat, he actually had all the different rooms and bits were all different levels, because a spacecraft wouldn't be flat. So he wanted it to be as real as possible. And you know, try and get bloody dolly and cameras and all booms and all of those up and down all these things. Apparently it was a real nightmare, but the crew kind of rolled with it because they could see how passionate he was about wanting to make it as realistic as possible. And kind of when I look at it from a director's point of view now, it's just outstanding what he achieved. It's so early on in his career as well. It's just absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I think you're right. Ginny. I think the production design, I think it's a guy called Joseph Bennett who did the production design.
Yes,
but
that's right.
I think Paul Anderson just went, go and make me something that I've never seen before. And obviously he went off. And what I don't know is how closely he was working with, because I think a lot of the hell dimension stuff in the script apparently came from a rewrite done by Andrew Kevin Walker, who was sort of fresh off Seven. And so he did a rewrite on the script, and in Paul Anderson's words, he was like, he just done Seven, so he was in the perfect place to rewrite this script. And yeah, seeing all that like you say, the religious iconography in the set, it's wonderful. It is like this floating cathedral. It's one of the most iconic spacecraft in sci-fi history, the Event Horizon. I couldn't draw the Nostromo, but I could draw you the Event Horizon right now.
I've got a DVD with Wait. Look at that.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's like a 9 Inch Nails record.
But it's mad how they do it, because you think about sort of if you say to a set designer, go away and make me a gothic spaceship that's really, really, really idiosyncratic and really, you know, one on its own. It's quite hard to do that when Geiger's already done his thing, because there's not much space left. You know, go and make like a sort of medieval-looking, semi-organic, semi-technological spaceship that's gothic and all this. It's like, how do you also find new space that Geiger hasn't nailed? Do you know what I mean? It's incredible.
You go make me a gothic, idiosyncratic spaceship, but not like that one.
Yeah,
a different one. The religious stuff, as you were saying, is probably why it scared me so much. I was raised not like really Catholic, but quite Catholic, and I think that films like that involve possession or the devil and stuff used to terrify me, because it was fucking real, isn't it? It's real. You're told behave when you're going to hell. It's where Sam Neill lost his eyes. I don't want to go there. Yeah. So I didn't watch The Exorcist till I was probably 32, because I had it drummed into me that if I watched The Exorcist, I was going to go to hell. I watched Exorcist 2 and 3, but not 1.
Jesus.
Literally.
That is going to hell.
3 is good.
The Latin stuff, as Alex quoted earlier, is obviously what good spacefaring, whatever it was, captain of that ship would go into space without a grasp of basic Latin? You know?
Do you know what freaks me about the film? Do you know what scares me the most about that film? And perhaps it's because I just have my imagination runs away with me. I was weirdly, when I watched it again recently, before we were doing this, I was just in bed reading the Wikipedia page, just like reading as I do. I watch a film and it becomes like a 3-hour thing where I then go on the IMDb trivia, and I'm reading it, and I read all about what was supposed to happen in the extended blood orgy scene, and this feeling came over me that didn't actually hit me when I was watching the film. This just it's quite a rare, it hasn't happened before. It's quite a rare feeling. Well, I just suddenly imagined like the true horror of those things happening to you when you are so far from home.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to articulate it any better than that. But the thought of being like a universe away and someone's like sodomizing you with a steel bar, it's like this is literally as bad as it gets. You know, like, and I just felt almost sick with the just a momentary empathy for that situation, and they've just distilled that into the film. It's horrible.
But
A little flashes.
I don't know what was supposed to actually be happening there because I've got the original script here. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Okay, so this is what they actually see, and we only see the real kind of quick images. Okay, so it says 4 of the original crew of the Event Horizon. 1, a man, has successfully shoved his arm down his throat up to his elbow. Blood bubbles from his nose. With a shocking sound, he pulls out his own stomach through his mouth. Behind him, a man and woman fuck. They are covered with blood. She has bitten through his neck, ripping away half of the muscles. His head lolls to the other side as she buries her face in his torn flesh as he thrusts into her again and again and screams. And presiding over them is Killpack. His eyes are bloody holes. He reaches his hands out as an offering, and resting in the palms of his hands are his eyes. He laughs. So that's what Eisner put in the original script. So that's kind of what we're seeing.
You definitely see the captain, don't you?
Yes,
yeah. It's I mean, Jason Isaacs famously said, because they were shooting that on a sort of separate stage, and he said that certainly, because I think they hired in porn stars,
amputees,
people from S&M clubs to do it. And what's Jason Isaacs' funny quote where you don't know whether he's joking or not because it's Jason Isaacs and you never do. He goes, whatever they were doing on that set was certainly against the law and definitely against every ethical and moral guild code.
Because a lot of that stuff wasn't filmed by Anderson, was it? It was filmed by the second unit director, I believe.
Yeah. And that might be part of the reason why it doesn't seemingly exist anymore. You know, who knows? I mean, there are rumors, obviously, that it does exist, and it was too much because they didn't want to get what do they call it in America? Is it NC-17? They didn't want that rating. They needed it to be R at the most and 18 for us, and they couldn't have any of that because that would have pushed them right over, and obviously the studio couldn't have that. But does it exist somewhere?
The salt mine route, the story of that. Do you remember when it was found in a salt mine and it was all rotten away?
Yes, apparently so. Yeah.
Appropriately enough, in Transylvania. Yeah, mad. But I think Paul Anderson has said that he would never. The 2-hour, 10-minute cut that was shown, like with the whole schedule screw up where Titanic gets bumped, so he gets all his production time cut, editing time cut. So he shows this 2-hour, 10-minute version. Paramount lose their shit because it is like it's got everything fucking in it. It's like it's the worst of the worst. There's the story about the kid with the maggot legs, which like that's. I mean, like Paul Anderson says, of all the moments where he knew that they'd lost the audience and they were going to be in trouble, was where on set. So the kid, it's Peter's kid, and he's obviously got the wounds in his legs, and there was meant to be a scene which has obviously been deleted where he had maggots crawling around in his legs. Yes. But the story about how they actually shot that is even worse than that image because the kid was behind a screen. So he had prosthetic legs, but they wanted to get the kid's reaction when he saw maggots in his legs for real on the set. So that he was playing on his like Sega Game Gear with the screen in front of him. And then when they took it off him and shouted action, they dropped the screen so he could see these prosthetic legs full of maggots. And apparently the kid lost his fucking shit, as you would, and is just crying and bawling. But they kept that kid's actual reaction in this 2-hour, 10-minute cut that they showed. And he knows that's when they lost the audience. And that's when Paramount just came in way too hard and cut it back more than they should have done. But Paul Anderson says he'd only actually add in this mystical director's cut, which we will never see, he'd only ever add 10 minutes more. He wouldn't ever show that 2-hour, 10-minute version because he says it was too much.
Yeah. Oh, I want to see it. I want to see the maggots.
So bad, right? So bad.
Awesome. Has anybody got any real things that they're absolutely dying to talk about then? You know, let's kind of like open the floor for something that it can be anything to do with it, whether it's a specific scene, whether it's sort of an interpretation or a theory, just whatever you are dying to talk about this film. Alex, do you want to go first?
Well, I mean, the way you set that up, I got to do my Sean Pertwee story, don't I? This feels like
yes.
to do Sean Pertwee. So, like I said, I cornered him in a bar, and by cornered him, I do mean literally cornered the man. He was positioned in such a way where he'd have to try and ask me to move to get away from the table. So this is, if anyone's interested in ever talking to Sean Pertwee about Event Horizon, you got to trap him. Got to be quick.
What tribe is it there?
And if ever I meet him.
That's it. Just corner him. Corner him. It's too polite to ask you to move. So I can't believe he's got new stuff to tell me after all these years. But I've often been too drunk to remember because I don't really have the confidence to corner Sean Pertwee. But I was like, so that scene, your face in the moment where you realise that bomb is going to go off and you don't have time to get away, your face is perfect. I love that. And he's like, do you know what? Paul had it that I'd open the Velcro, find the bomb, and there was only 1 second to go, and it goes, and I'm dead. And I was the one who argued for there to be 6 seconds left on the countdown so that you had time for Smitty you'd see him think, can I get away? Then realize he couldn't get away, and then accept his fate and the bomb go off. So that little bit of immaculate face acting that he does was because he asked for a bit longer on the countdown clock. There's your exclusive.
Oh, that's awesome, because that is literally an iconic shot. Like you say, you can see him kind of being like, oh God, I actually know what's about to happen, like literally just before it does.
And that's a weird little bit of comic relief as well. I mean, I know it's not funny, but it's like a slightly lighter moment because it's Sean Pertwee. He makes me laugh in everything he's in, you know what I mean? So I think that it's the little bit of humour that you perhaps need at that point in the film, which has got pretty dark by then.
No, I cry every time because Sean's dead.
But he's not my mate, is he? So as far as I'm concerned, he's just comic relief. So I'm not at all, not that I'm bitter about any of this.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our special guest to the podcast, Sean Pertwee.
I did actually toy with the idea of saying if he wanted to come on, but he's in New York, I think, at the minute. So
he's always a busy guy, isn't he?
He is, yeah.
The only other bit I would add that I'd want to talk about, there's only one deleted scene that, like, I think weirdly I remembered it because you mentioned The Exorcist, Ben. But there's a deleted scene where Sam Neill in his Cenobite form was supposed to crawl backwards, spider-like down a ladder. Like, I've never seen it because it's part of the famous lost footage. But just like
Chasing Stark, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's it. Yeah, and you remember, you think of the Reagan scene in The Exorcist where she comes down the stairs, but it's like, imagine that, but in this, I'd be like, I wish I could. That's the bit that I would put back in.
Me too. That's the bit when I was reading like a list of excised material. That was the bit I was thinking, oh, that should have made it. Definitely.
I was just thinking about the orgy. To be fair, like,
what's
isolate that audio.
a meme right there.
It's going to be everybody I know's ringtone forever. Just thinking of myself. I obviously showed off this 2006 or 2007 special edition with a documentary, and it's the kit, and it's got like a gnarly little booklet by Sean.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they did. I don't know if you got this, the 4K super duper collector's edition, right? If you're a physical media guy, it comes with loads of tats, but
Oh, gorgeous!
it's the shoulder patch from the Lewis and Clark.
Oh,
that's amazing.
The blueprint of the kit. A little pin badge, what the crew would wear.
Do you know that's so cool? Do you know the story about the flags on their uniforms? The cast actually had input into those flags, didn't they? Like they got to, so like I think like the English like Jolie Richardson has got not the Union Jack, but the EU flag. So in this version of reality, Brexit didn't happen, which is nice. You know, for all the going to hell, we're still part of the EU. So you know. Every cloud,
and I think Sam Neill's badge is, can't remember the detail on this, but it's something about sort of really promoting Aboriginal rights.
They've taken off the Union Jack and put on an Aboriginal flag.
Yeah, because he thought that's what would have happened by 2047 or whenever it was. Yeah, God, who would have thought that Event Horizon would present a sort of utopian view of the future?
We've got the worst timeline. They literally went to hell.
Yeah.
And like Danny Boyle completely ripped it off for Sunshine as well, and sort of masqueraded it as a serious like sci-fi movie. Like I remember seeing Sunshine at the cinema, like opening weekend. There was nobody in there, completely dead cinema. It was like me and my girlfriend at the time. And about 40 minutes in, I was like, "It's Event Horizon. You're messing." Calm down. No, I won't calm down. The only way this is going to get worse is if someone pops up at the end and tries to kill them all. And there it was. He was all banged up.
Burn Guy as well, yeah.
Exactly. Unbelievable.
The utopian cast of people from different cultures all around the world, because everyone was living in harmony and we were all going into space together. And then it turns into Event Horizon 2, basically.
But not as good.
Nowhere near as good.
Nowhere near as good.
He's serious.
Yeah.
And I think that's...
I mean, despite the fact that we were flying to the sun, they still managed to make it.
A giant disco ball to reflect the heat.
Yeah. Can I ask like the big question about this? This is what I want to talk about. Like, I absolutely love the ambiguity about what the other place is, right? This is the big question, because the phrase like hell dimension, people say, "Oh, it went to hell." That gets banded around a lot now, as if like it's just a clear thing that they went to hell. And what I want to know is what you guys think about: do they go to the hell? Do they go to like a supernatural place that is hell, or do they, in my favorite theory, go somewhere that is the basis, a physical place that is the basis for all our myths of hell and our understanding of hell? Because that's way cooler.
Well, they all see their own worst fears. I always thought it was like an existential, metaphysical. It's not really that. It sort of goes through a black hole, which is the absence of anything. But in that absence is the stuff that scares the most. So, like, I didn't really think of it as a place, more of I don't know, like a big fucking dark room. That's dead scary. But
yeah, I think because I'm an atheist, so I think my thing about it was all like it's no fucking hell, but there is Planet X where everyone's eating each other and maybe someone's been there and come back, and that's where it all. I love that idea. Or I'll even go with Cenobites and all that. If it's Hellray, if it's Pinhead's backyard, I'm happy with that as well. But that to me is cooler than it being a existential or supernatural sort of punishment.
Do you think I find the most exciting thing for me is it's like when people talk about how the universe is infinite, and you sort of try and wrap your head around that, and you're like, you just can't fathom it. And I quite like the fact that it's almost like Ben was saying, it's almost too abstract to actually like form a physical thought of what that place is. It's like it's such a chaotic quagmire of insanity that the human mind cannot quantify it or qualify it in any way. And that's what I think maybe keeps me coming back to this movie, because it's like I don't know what's there. It's not X, it's not one thing, it's not anything I've ever really fully understood.
And this is where it gets into people. Sorry, Ben, carry on. Sorry.
No, I don't. I was
going to say. Go on, Ben. No, over to you.
It's left. 5 minutes in, and it ends as the Truffle Brothers. I think it's the absence of anything makes something. It's not what it is; it's what it isn't. It's what it takes from you, like a black hole.
Well, they even say, don't they, that there's a quote in it where he says, like, it is absolute and unending nothingness or something like that. But, like, everyone always talks about this film in relation to Clive Barker or Warhammer. And no, I'm permit me a moment's nerdiness here if I'm bringing the horror podcasting into it, the horror book side of things. No one ever talks about Lovecraft.
I was thinking that.
Like, the weird cosmic otherworld, which is exactly like you just said, Alex. Like, the fact that we can never understand this. And I've always wondered, because I think about these things too deeply, is that what makes them do what they do? Because we don't actually know why they've done we don't know why they've had the blood orgy. We don't know what prompts it. And the question that always occurs to me is, why are some of them victims and some of them are assailants, which I don't understand. I always think, what if it is just that chaos that the human mind can't deal with it, so we just break and it's actually all Cthulhu?
Well, did you see Underwater a couple of years ago? That's very similar to Event Horizon, but at the bottom of the sea.
Yeah, that was a fist pump moment at the end of that. Yeah.
The original script did have aliens in it as well. Philip Eisner had designed it so it was a tentacled alien that was controlling the minds, kind of thing. But Paul Anderson wanted to move away from that because, he said there has already been a film with an alien, and he absolutely adored Ridley Scott, so he was never going to try and step on his toes or anything like that. But again, there's that kind of Lovecraftian influence. For me personally, I've always thought that it was perhaps just a state of mind, that they were literally driven mad because they were away for 7 years it was supposed to be. 7 years of complete and utter nothingness. It would drive anyone literally insane. That was kind of my interpretation, again, being agnostic, kind of more into the atheist side of things, so not necessarily believing that there is a purgatory or a hell or something. In a way, it's even worse if they hadn't actually gone somewhere like that was making them do it, but it was their own minds had just completely, they'd lost their shit entirely, gone completely mad and started doing all of that stuff to each other and to themselves. The guy that rips his own stomach out, kind of thing. What the hell state of mind must you be in to do that?
I think that is the biggest fear. If you are religious, the biggest fear is that there's absolutely nothing after it. Whereas atheists, we don't care. But if you're spending your whole life thinking, like the characters in the film who are religious and speaking Latin, if you're thinking, well, I'm going to heaven, there's going to be this cool little afterlife, and you get a glimpse into the other world where the Event Horizon has been, and it's absolute black nothingness filled with terror, the infinite void, you are gonna fuck someone and rip your own stomach out, because why not? There's no punishment after it. Like, right, let's have it. Why not?
It's true. Yep.
I mean, and you've got a lot of time on your hands, which is how you come up with things like drilling screws into people's teeth. You're like, you don't. That's not the first thing you think of. That's probably a year 4 decision of being in nothingness. You're like, has anyone got a drill and some screws? Because
it was like the second summer in lockdown.
Oh, we've lost Ben.
Oh,
where did he go?
He may have an aversion to screws being drilled into teeth and just gone, I'm out.
I think. Where did you go? Was that it? Was screws your trigger?
Did you go to hell? Have you been to hell and back?
Oh, brilliant.
How was it? We've just been discussing what's out there. Can you confirm? Is it hell? Is it actual hell?
Oh, amazing. Okay, what about some other big moments? I think everybody touched on the bit where Justin tries to commit suicide by just launching himself off into space. So who wants to talk about how just fucking horrific that was? You know, the worst kind of suicide ever. Yeah.
I think it's, for me, it's there's a moment in it which I think is just, it's such a brilliant piece of nastiness, which is where he's doing all this stuff and he's in this kind of trance-like state and he doesn't realize what he's doing, and then the alarm goes off when he hits the outer door button, and like that he comes to, and he's clearly not been aware of what he's doing, where he is, and he's suddenly like, what the fuck's going on? Mama Bear, get me out of here. Mama Bear, why is this happening? Mama Bear, and she can't help him, and it's on a timer and there is literally nothing, and she's like, blow all the air out of your lungs and go into a ball, and that is the only advice she can give him as he puts his hands to his eyes and blood spurts through the gaps in his fingers. It's just that whole moment. I've given myself goosebumps, actual goosebumps. Even describing that scene is just, it's such an incredibly awfully brilliant moment.
It's weird, though, isn't it? That well, yeah, exactly. And I think because it's emotional, it's weird that, like, amongst all the gore and viciousness of that film, that's the thing that everyone remembers as the scene. You know, the scene, and it's because it's quite a quiet scene in comparison to what goes on, but it just gets, you just feel such sorrow. It's horrible. It's not like fun horror, that bit. It's like you feel bad.
Yeah, definitely. Like Alex said, it's literally that moment where he's kind of like talking about all the dark and he doesn't want to go back to it and everything, and you can see that's still him, like, in this trance mode. But that second when the consciousness hits him and he knows what is going to happen in just mere seconds, it's gut-wrenching, you know. And as much as, you know, there's the horrific bloody scenes, like poor old DJ when he's like flayed and strung up with all of his guts underneath him and all of that kind of stuff, that's all like horrifically like gross and whatnot. But it is that scene with Justin, and like you said, when it's the whole mama bear, baby bear, which, you know, is just like, oh my god, I can't believe you've done that to us.
Someone said it was it's Paul Anderson's best film earlier, and I think that scene is just so well directed as an action scene, as an exercise in tension, like the way Miller, Lawrence Fishburne's character, first of all, how cool it looks. Like, it looks like money has been spent, the way he's sort of pushing himself through, or like on that rail, and then he does the flip, and like, you've got so many elements all working together to create both a tense, horrific, and heartbreaking scene.
Definitely. Are there any?
I just don't think he tries to make films like Event Horizon anymore. I think he's doing something else. I think that I'm not sure it's really a criticism of his filmmaking chops. I think he's just not trying this stuff. I'd like to see him go and do it.
I mean, look, like, what did he turn down for this? He turned down X-Men. He was asked to direct X-Men, and he directed this instead. And, you know, to him, he might look back and go, well, that was a terrible decision. I could still be making X-Men movies. But for us, I'm like, fantastic choice, Paul. Well done.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
But I tell you what, it looks good for 60 million. It looks really good. Yeah.
And an R-rated one at that was you mentioned Lovecraft earlier. It's like Guillermo del Toro wanted to make The Mountains of Madness, and he needed 150 million, and they were like, yeah, but it has to be PG-13. We're not going to let you make that unless it's PG-13. It's like it has to be R-rated, and therefore we don't have that movie.
Yeah.
Oh, didn't it make you go? Someone should see that. Some studio somewhere should go, do you know what? It's worth it. Like, that is worth it. That test footage alone, like, it's just, I mean, it's so basic, and you're still like, oh my God, the Shoggoth attack. Fucking hell. Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting. Wow, yeah, but they've got Indiana Jones 6 through to 27 to think about, so I can't be doing that. Of course, yeah, you will, yeah. I mean, it can only go up. Sorry, I know you said, Janine, don't be negative on this podcast. And here I am going, yeah, Indy 5 can only be better. But sorry, I'm going to stop.
Yeah, definitely.
Sort of. I like that. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
We'll all see it, so we can't complain too much. And Neil Marshall's the biggest indie fan in the world, and he's looking forward to it. So there we go. Yeah. Okay. Has anybody got anything else that they particularly want to mention, or has anybody else got any anecdotes about the film that perhaps they are not sure if other people might know that they'd like to share, or anything like that? I know Ben's been sworn to secrecy by Pertwee, but
what you've got to tell us after we finish. What on earth?
Yeah. Yeah. It was a good night, though. Just in case. Yeah, definitely. That's it. Yeah. The weird thing about drinking with Sean, and I don't know if you've noticed this as well, Alex, is most people get louder as they drink, but Sean gets quieter. So at one point, after he had about 10 pints, I was literally like right up to him, not that I minded, but like, trying to like listen to him as he gets quieter and quieter and quieter. It's bizarre.
Well, I imagine he gets quite menacing when he gets quieter, because that's what he does. That's how he plays menacing in a film.
Yeah.
He's not remotely menacing. He is absolutely lovely. He is funny as fuck, and he is just so down to earth. He's just
You're having a really quiet pint, and then a cow just falls back.
and he's had such a varied career and he's done so much, but like Ben said, he remembers the littlest things from all of the the productions that he's done. He'll remember the people that he's worked with. And when we were at the For the Love of Horror, so I was sat with Neil and Sean was next to me, and obviously most of the people came for Dog Soldiers and had Dog Soldiers posters and whatnot to be signed, but occasionally there was the odd Event Horizon one as well. But whenever there was a question that one of the people asked Sean and he wasn't sure, he'd be like, Janine, you'll know the answer to this. What was so-and-so? So I would like his PA, I'd have to answer the questions for him. It was like, Janine will know the answer to that. She's the film nerd. Brilliant.
Could do an Event Horizon reunion one day.
I know we said this wasn't going to turn into the Sean Pertwee loving, but there you go. You just can't help it when you're talking about Sean Pertwee.
Definitely. It's true. Okay, cool. So has anyone got any final points about what they would, if those lost tapes turned up and suddenly Paul announced, there's this new director's cut, what is the one thing that you would like to either see included in the cut, or to be more, if there was more backstory for a certain character, or something that was explained just a little bit more so things weren't so ambiguous? Or are you happy with the way that the film was interpreted and you just want to see the orgy scene?
I think,
Alex, is there anything that you really wish could be included?
I mean, the Cenobite, the Sam Neill Cenobite climbing backwards down the ladder, which I already mentioned, like a spider. I think that would be good. I actually, the deleted scene that you can watch on YouTube, where the earlier briefing, I don't mind that. I think it should be cut down because it does reveal a lot of plot points that are better sort of left for later on as the film goes on. But I just like the set. I like the setup. I like the fact that it's you see sort of, you get a bit more of Dr. Weir. So I think Paul Anderson himself has said he'd put that back in, but in a reduced form. And DJ, Jason Isaacs, I know the ship is playing on people's worst fears. I think it's a really weird fear, to fear being dissected alive. I mean, it's sure, like, it's scary, but I don't think it seems very niche. So I think a little more about why DJ's fear. I think there is some character backstory out there about how he had an operation as a child, which is why he's got the scar on his chest. But I think fleshing out that, if you excuse the pun, would be a little more interesting for his character. Just give Jason Isaacs more as well, because he's a freaking brilliant actor.
Oh, he is.
Yeah, when I watched it again, that's what I was not disappointed in, but like, there's not enough Jason Isaacs because he's just the most watchable person.
Yes.
Ever since I watched Death of Stalin, I've become a massive Jason Isaacs just devotee. I fucked the Third Reich. I think I can angle a flesh lump in a suit. But yeah, so more Jason Isaacs definitely. I also want that scene where the backwards down the ladder. But you know what? I'm going to be perhaps controversial. I don't want the extended blood orgy. I think it'd ruin the film.
Agree. Yeah,
I think it'd kill the film.
Yeah, I think it's nice to talk about. I think everyone sort of goes, oh, but honestly, like the reason we're talking about it is because you don't see it, and because like we've all at some point gone through it frame by frame to see everything, and you expand on that and you lose it. It's like the famous, it's like the head in the box at the end of Seven.
Yes.
It's like the famous King Kong footage from 1933 where they, with the insects in the bottom of the ravine that was lost, and you think about that and you're like, oh my god, I wonder what that looked like. You saw it, you'd be like, all right. So yeah you don't really want to see it.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that as well. It's the whole thing that nothing can ever be more scary than what you imagine. It's what you can't see that it is more terrifying. And going back to the Jason Isaacs thing, not only, yes, would I like to know a little bit more about, as you said, Alex, about why that was his particular thing, but also I'd like to know more about why he snaps at Sean at that point, when he like puts the scalpel up to his neck, because at that point, sort of before that point, he'd seemed that he was, quite chubby with Smitty and all of that kind of stuff. And that was the one bit in the film I was a bit like, why did he turn like that? I know the ship is doing weird things to them all, but did that show kind of some propensity for violence? And if it did, but would have been cool if that had been a bit more explored, maybe.
Does that answer your earlier question about why some of them became victims and some became assailants? And it just gets in different ways.
Maybe, yeah.
Depends
Brings
who
out
you
your
are.
most basic feral animalistic qualities. You're either a predator or prey.
Which was bizarrely the plot of the Dwayne Johnson Doom movie.
Yes, yeah, which isn't as bad as everyone says. I've got
that's basically the Stanford prison experiment in space, isn't it?
He can't turns into the Doom guy.
Yeah.
The flesh is in that as a guy with like a robot wheelchair. It's like sent to another dimension.
And if anyone was questioning whether they should or shouldn't watch Doom if they haven't seen it, as you just said, Ben, Dexter Fletcher is in it in a robot wheelchair. Do you need any more information? Go and watch Doom immediately.
Yeah, he's awesome. Anyway, Dexter Fletcher, definitely.
Oh, great.
Worth watching anything. Okay, well, we're coming up on almost an hour now anyway, which from general research and things is about when people start to lose interest in stuff, if anybody's still around listening to us waffle on. So I think it's probably a good time to wrap it up and to first of all say thank you for you all coming on to my kind of test show, really, to see if I can actually press the right. It's as if I'm in a spaceship. That's how complicated it is for me just to press a record button. But hopefully I've done okay with it. But before we go, all three of you have your own social medias and your own podcasts and things. So it'd be really awesome if you can just plug anything that you particularly want to. Alex, where can people find you? Everywhere, really, but.
Yeah, you can find me on all sorts of social media. Alex Zane, Zane. I host a podcast called Clash of the Titles, where we put two movies with something in common against each other. That's on all podcast platforms. And an interview podcast where a special guest takes us on their perfect night out at the cinema every week called A Trip to the Movies. And if you fancy either of those, it'd be lovely if you gave it a listen. Thank you.
Awesome. And particularly listen to the Jed Shepherd one, because Jed's a good friend of mine.
Oh, he was great. Yeah, he's brilliant.
He's awesome. Jed's lovely. Ben, where can we find you?
At the moment, it is just the For the Love of Horror live show, which is on Facebook every other Wednesday or whatever day we put it on Facebook at For the Love of Horror, which is Europe's biggest horror convention. Or you can find me on my personal socials at Hale_Leviathan if you want to look at pictures of DVDs. And pictures of my face. That's it.
Just quickly tell us a bit about For the Love of Horror, the actual convention.
Oh, so yes, it's one of the world's biggest horror conventions. I've been working for them since 2019 as stage host, interviewer, social media, all that type of stuff. It's amazing. We've had the Lost Boys reunion a couple of years ago, where I had Matthew Lillard, Skeet Ulrich, Scream, where the cast of the Rocky Horror Show with Tim Curry, the Monster Squad kids, we had Fred Decker. Who did we have last year? Dog Soldiers 20th anniversary, David Arquette. If horror is your jam, For the Love of Horror is, so come and see us. November this year.
Was Tim Curry amazing?
Yeah. Yeah, he's obviously he's had a stroke and he's in a wheelchair and he's I'd seen him about through the weekend and I said me okay. And I went in to talk to him and I just leaned in to talk to him and that voice came out and I got goosebumps. And I walked out to him, I was like, fucking hell, it's Tim Curry. Like, just, he was magical.
His Pennywise is still the scariest thing I've ever seen in any film ever. It fucked me up for a very long time.
Yeah,
it's my favorite thing in the world, right? The book, and like he will forever be my Pennywise.
But
Skarsgård can do one.
I did the world's first reunion of the Losers Club in 2018, and they did it in Birmingham of all places. I hosted that, and the stuff they told me about Tim Curry scaring the shit out of them as kids is gold. Like, a paper with a fire in his mouth, and then it's walking in the room, and he's telling the name in the paper, it comes out and Pennywise, and just did it.
Oh, brilliant. Neil, where can people find you? And tell us a little bit about your podcast.
So I talk to famous horror authors, pretty famous now. So like started off with Paul Tremblay, and I've just had Margaret Atwood who came on the show, which was I nearly had a stroke in preparation for that. I was terrified. But it's not just book authors; it's creators of all kind. I'm kind of widening the net a little bit. When is this going live?
I don't know.
Right.
When I've edited it.
You know, I'll do an exclusive. I'm getting Mike Flanagan.
We're live.
I'm getting Mike Flanagan on the show. We made thing. Anyway, you could. Wow. Yeah, he's coming on to talk about whatever he wants to talk about, and I'm also weirdly DMing with Guillermo del Toro, so it's all gone a bit mad.
Mountain of Madness is getting on.
Just sort of beg and hope he comes on to talk to me. But anyway, you can find it on Talk Scared Pod on any social stuff. I play at TikTok. I don't really know what I'm doing, but Instagram and Twitter, I'm there. And the show is Talking Scared, literally anywhere you get your podcasts.
That is amazing. I am so happy for you. That's your Kevin Bacon, but to Stephen King.
All roads lead to Stephen King in the day. That's all I'm doing. It's just stepping stones to Stephen King, at which point, as I said before, I shall retire and go into the West.
Definitely. I have emailed Stephen King once and had a reply from him.
How did you get this address?
That was.
Do you know Sean Pertwee? I'm a big fan.
Yeah, and that was, I can remember I stared at the email for about 2 hours, just like didn't know what to do with myself. I wasn't expecting it. I'd say it was something to do with Neil Marshall, and I sent it was to obviously his agent, because that's how most people would contact him. But we had this possible email that Neil gave me, and he said, just try it, see that. I'm pretty sure that's Stephen King. And I never in a million years thought that A, it was Stephen King, and B, that if it was, he would ever reply. And so when that reply came through, and then, like I said, like what it did, and then best Steve at the end, I was like, yes, me and Steve are besties now.
I think I'd faint. I don't want.
I was close to it. I think I was like catatonic, like I said, for about 2 hours, just like, what am I going to do now? I've peaked.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so very much. This will go up at some point when I have worked out how to do that.
You can't leave. She won't let you.
Okay, thank you ever so much. I'm going to stop recording now.